everyone, it's Sarah. Today I'm going to be doing my summer reading wrap-up. Okay, so some of you probably have noticed that I have not done a monthly reading wrap-up in a while. I didn't do one for June or July or August. So now I'm going to group all of those together and do one big summer reading wrap-up. So I read 16 books over the summer. I read 5 in June, 4 in July, and 7 in August. I actually did a lot better than I thought I did. I was kind of thinking that I was being sort of reading slumpy all summer, but I actually managed to read a lot more than I thought. So in the month of June, I read Cinder by Marissa Meyer, SCARLET by Marissa Meyer, CRESS by Marissa Meyer, and FAIREST by Marissa Meyer. So these are all books in the Lunar Chronicles series. Cinder was actually the only one that I actually physically read. The rest I listened to on audiobook, and then I loved them all so much that I bought physical copies. Plus the covers are all really gorgeous. I am not going to talk much about these books because I already did a separate discussion video talking all about the Lunar Chronicles and how much I enjoyed these books. So I will link to that here so you can watch that if you want to hear me talk about the Lunar Chronicles. But needless to say, I absolutely loved this series and I can't wait for Winter to come out, which is the last book in the series, and that is being released in November. Also in June, I finished a writing craft book called Beginnings, Middles, and Ends by Nancy Kress. Originally, I checked this out from my library and I started reading it, but I liked it so much that I wanted to purchase a copy, so I bought it on ebook and then I finished it that way. It was a really helpful book. I also talked about this book in my video where I talk about 6 writing craft books that I think all writers should read. I will link that as well. Okay, so in July, I finally finished Time Live by Alexandra Stoddard. I have literally been reading this book since the beginning of the year. It's a non-fiction book that has just kind of little essay kind of things that give you sort of advice about, how to live your life and how to make the most of your time and appreciate the moment and all of that. So I would just kind of pick it up and read 1 or 2 and then not pick it up again for a couple of weeks and then, read another one. It was just kind of a very sporadic reading experience. As far as kind of the self-help books go, this one wasn't my favorite, but I did appreciate it. In July, I also finished reading When I'm Old and Other Stories by Gabrielle Belle. This is a graphic novel that I stumbled upon in the used bookstore. It was kind of a different sense of humor than I usually have, so I don't know that I really got all of the stories. I don't remember that much of it, so I don't think it really left an impression on me. Also, this was the first graphic novel that I read, and I think that there are probably a lot better graphic novels that I could have started with, but this one was it was okay. In July, I also read Meant to Be by Lauren Morril. I got this in a giveaway on Sarah Ella's channel, which I was excited about. I read this pretty much in one sitting when I was at the beach. I absolutely loved this book. It's a contemporary YA. It's about a girl named Julia who is doing a sort of study abroad type thing in London. It's a really great summery read and it's a really fast read, so if you kind of need a last minute holding on to summer read, I would definitely recommend it. This was for sure one of my favorite books of the summer. The writing style was really funny. I felt like I really connected with her sense of humor. I really connected with the characters, and I felt like they were really realistic teenage characters, which you don't always see in YA contemporary. And I connected with the romance as well. I thought it was all very relatable, and it really just sucked me in, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading this one. And the last book that I read in July was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which I listened to on audiobook. The only other book that I read by her has been Throne of Glass. I only read the first book in that series. I enjoyed it, but I have not picked up the rest of the series yet. Anyway, so I was hearing a lot of good things about this book, and it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, supposedly, which I absolutely love, so I wanted to pick it up for that reason. Honestly, I was not that much of a fan. I was having a lot of trouble connecting with the characters. I'm really getting invested in the story. I will say that Sarah J. Maas has a very interesting and kind of poetic writing style, and I really admire that. But all in all, it was not my favorite. I read a lot of great books in August. I pretty much loved every book that I read in August for different reasons. So the first book I listened to on audio, and it was called Bone Gap by Laura Ruby. This is a young adult contemporary about this really small town. The main character is this guy named Finn. So Finn and his brother Sean, their mother is kind of out of the picture, and the father has always sort of been out of the picture. So they're kind of left on their own as brothers in this small town. Finn is finishing up high school. Sean is a little bit older. So this girl, Rosa, comes into town and befriends both of them. But at the beginning of the novel, she is kidnapped. So they are trying to find her and get her back. But at the same time, it's kind of an interesting character study. I really loved this book. I have not read another YA book like this. It kind of reminded me of the same tone as The Walls Around Us by Nova Rensuma. Even if you haven't read that book and you just like a lot of YA, I would still recommend picking up, because all of the characters were very different from what you normally see in YA, and I thought they were all very interesting to follow. There were a lot of surprises and twists and turns that I did not see coming. All in all, I really loved this book, and I would recommend it. The second book I read in August was Amy and Roger's Epic Detour by Morgan Matson. I listened to this on audiobook for Booktubeathon. This was also by far one of my favorite books. This is another YA contemporary. I talked a little about this in the Booktubeathon Wrap Up, so I'm not going to say that much, but I absolutely loved it, and I would definitely recommend it for any of you who like YA contemporary. The next book that I read in August for the Booktubeathon was The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I also listened to this on audiobook. Again, I talked about this in my Booktubeathon wrap-up, so I will link to that and not go on about it much here, but I will say that I really enjoyed it. The next book I read in August for the Booktubeathon was Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. It was a pretty interesting read for me. It was an interesting take on the Peter Pan story. It had kind of a slow beginning for me. It took me a while to get into it. But overall, I am glad that I read it. So after all of those YA books, I was really feeling the need to take a break from YA for a little bit. And the next book that I listened to in August on audiobook was Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail by Cheryl Strayed. This is a nonfiction kind of memoir about this young woman who hiked on the Pacific Crest Trail, which is kind of like the West Coast version of the Appalachian Trail. It goes from Mexico to Canada on the West Coast. I absolutely loved this book. When she begins the whole journey, she is kind of coping with her divorce and mourning the loss of her mother, who died of cancer. So she kind of starts this journey sort of in a very broken place, and she kind of finds herself over the course of taking this very long hike. And she meets a lot of interesting people along the way, and kind of discovers a strength that she didn't know she had, and it was just a very good book. It was very introspective and thought-provoking. I would definitely recommend reading this one. The next book I listened to on audiobook, and that was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. This is a classic kind of science fiction where this man develops a time machine and he goes forward in time to the future. It was a very interesting read. I will say that I did not really care for the narrator of the audiobook, and I think that kind of informed my experience of it a little bit. So I would be interested to reread this book and actually read a physical copy, because there were definitely parts of it that I enjoyed, and it was very thought-provoking, and he creates a very interesting world, and he has a very interesting writing style, but I was having a really hard time getting past the narrator being annoying. And the last book that I read in August was Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is a kind of classic science fiction book. It's about this little boy who is very, very smart, and they send him to this kind of military school very early on in his life. I think he's 6 years old when they first send him there. And they're training him to basically become a military leader to fight in this war against the aliens. This book is kind of strange, I will say. It's definitely a very unique book. I've never read another book like it. So my cat Frank apparently really wanted to be in this video as well. Anyway, I really enjoyed my experience of reading this book. And the world that Orson Scott Card creates is also very interesting and unique. His writing style is very interesting. And I was very engaged the whole time. I thought the characters were very interesting. I didn't necessarily connect to any of them or really relate to any of them, but they were still interesting to read about. Alright, so those are all the books that I read over the summer. I really enjoyed a lot of books that I read this summer. I think I read some of my favorite books of the year this summer. What about you guys? What did you read over the summer? Have you read any of these books? I would love to hear what you have to say about any of these books or about anything you read over the summer down below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos about books, writing, or music. And until next time, thanks for watching. Bye!